And Daddy always said, ain't no white man getting this land as long as I'm living. His brother, Jesse Davis, owned the store, what we call Uptown. He had his own store. He wanted to sell the land, and they were in conflict like a lot of people are probably today. But I remember my great uncle Jesse and my grandfather, which I called Daddy. Daddy said, ain't no white man getting this land as long as I'm living. My brother just want to sell this land. So that's me mimicking my grandfather, because he and I, we used to always talk, and we were very close, and we lived close to him.
State your name and where you from.
Ola, O-L-L-A, Ola, May Davis, D-A-V-I-S. Born in Texarkana, Arkansas, June 16th, 1944.
Can you tell me how your upbringing was in Texarkana, Arkansas?
My upbringing was everyday challenge, because my father died when I was 5.5. He died at home. We lived in the country, and my grandma on my father's side died 8 hours after he did. And I went to his funeral and her funeral at the same time. And my mother had 5 children, so therefore she was left to raise her children without her husband.
Can you tell me some of the best experiences that you've had in Texarkana, Arkansas?
My experiences, I'm not disappointed, because I made very good friends ever since I began school at 6, and I still have some of the friends today. We couldn't go to school with white children. We had to go to school about 5 miles from where we live. The teacher had to build a heat in the heater.
How did they build a heater?
The heater is made before I was born. It was an iron heater that you put wood in and you start a fire. So the teacher would start the fire before we get to school, so it would be as warm as it could be. And one teacher taught 1st and 2nd grade, maybe about 40 children in the room. And she's married to the principal, who taught 5th and 6th grade. And there was a teacher named Mrs. Reed. She taught 3rd and 4th grade. The teachers cared about if we learned. We had to read, we learned to write. And the principal, you know, he would get out, he would play with us, and he would play baseball with us and have a good time and do your math. And so that's where my beginning of learning started. Mm-hmm. And I don't resent anything. You know, it was God calling for my daddy to go. Mm-hmm. And it's my calling to try to help other young people. Mm-hmm. And why? Because you need to. But I still love school. I still love school at this age.
Well, what makes you so fond of education?
I don't really have all the answers for that. It just comes from deeply on the inside.
And did it snow in Arkansas where you were at, Texarkana?
It snowed. They had their seasons. It snowed almost every winter. It snowed.
How did you like going to school in Texarkana, Arkansas?
So after you leave the 6th grade, you go to Washington High School, and you're starting 7th grade through the 12th grade at Washington High School, which is in the city of Texarkana. So we're leaving the country after the 6th grade, going to the city to Washington High School.
How was the high school experience, would you say?
Well, the high school experience was quite a bit different, because you needed to make friends with a lot of other children that was growing up in the city, and we were from the country.
And do you feel like being from the country, how did that shape you as a person?
It shaped me as being independent, young. I never wore anybody else's shoes, so during cotton picking time, I'll tell my mom, I call her Medea, I'll tell Medea, well, I'm going to take 2 days off of school, pick cotton, so I can buy me some new shoes. So she said, okay. And as of today, I never would wear anybody else's shoes, because I always wear my own shoes, even if they worn them once.
When you were growing up in Arkansas, around what age did you start to work?
7 or 8, I'm out there picking cotton, and I pick the cotton. There are long rows of cotton, so I pick the cotton, and I would make piles and put it in the front for my mother, and then she would come by and pick up whatever I had to pick and put it in the cotton sacks. The cotton sacks were like 6 feet long for adults, and the younger people might have had what they call a croquet sack, which is about half that size. And so you start working as young as you could pick up something. That's why I'm always telling my granddaughter, she can play and put her junk all over the floor, but let's always tell her before you leave, you got to clean up before you leave.
Yeah.
Because we didn't wait till we get 15. They don't, you start working as long as you could walk and pick up and move something.
So when you were picking cotton, you said as young as 7 years old, did you do that all the way up until you left at 15?
Yeah, did that all the way until I left during the cotton picking season, and until I was 15. And then when there wasn't a cotton picking season, there was a pecan season, where we go about 5 miles down and we pick up the pecans for the owners who own the pecan tree in a place called Lost Prairie. We would get half and the owners would get half. And we could sell it to him, or we could take part of them, but that's how they did. We would work, pick up, and the owner would get half and we would get half, or we could sell our half to him, or we could take part of it and sell part of it to the owners of the pecan trees.
Were the owners white, black, or were they?
White.
White. And what about the cotton? When you used to pick the cotton, what did your mother do with all the cotton?
Oh, that belonged to the people that you're picking the cotton for. They had a big trailer out there. You bring the cotton where you weigh the cotton, and the person that's sitting up there waiting for people to bring the cotton to be weighed, he just took the cotton and weighed it to see how much it were. But they paid us, it was a little money, but they paid us off each day. It wasn't like sharecropping, we give you that little money, but they would weigh it on a scale. Yeah. Okay.
And for people that don't know, people that are, say, in my generation, did picking cotton, did that ever wear and tear on your hands? Were there like thorns in the cotton or anything like that?
Yeah, your hands could get a little scarred up, but those kind of things, you just got used to it and go home and put some Vaseline or something on it. But yeah, you're picking it out of that. You've seen cotton, you pick it out of there, and sometimes your hand could get a little scarred up. But, my mother, she never really said, well, you just got to do it. You better pick this much. I know some, a few other mothers that did, but my mother never did that. And I never chopped cotton. When you get out there, and then I get up there, I was chopping cotton, and maybe I could have been 13 or so, which children started doing it. And then I'll say, my dear, it's sun too hot out here. And by the time I get to the third one, she said, girl, go home. She never made me work. And so, but being is already in your system and how you're raised around everybody. I went home and I started cooking food. I started shelling some peas or something and cooking whatever is there to cook. And when I come home, they come home 6 o'clock. Usually work, they used to call from sun up to sundown. Start at 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the evening, you're leaving. I would have a meal already cooked for the family. And then my mother come home one day and I just go in there and I'd start cooking. I was about 10, maybe 13, 12, something like that. And she said, huh?
What'd you cook?
Black-eyed peas, beans, and we usually had some kind of meat there, hog or something. Just cook it.
Hog like pig?
Okay. We had a smokehouse. Daddy had a smokehouse. You call it a smokehouse, where you smoke the meat. When you kill the hog, you put it in the smokehouse and let the smoke it up. And that's how they stored the meat. So
you said you raised chickens and hogs. So how many different animals did you have in Arkansas?
In Texarkana, Arkansas, we had cattle, and I never learned to milk a cow because I was afraid. And my mother tried to teach me, but I said no, he'll kick me. We had cows, and my mother would milk the cow, and you would put the milk in a churn, and when it called clabber, you would churn the milk and that way the butter came, and you would put it in a mold until the butter is formed, and also did churn the milk, but I never learned to milk a cow.
So cattle, you said hogs?
We had cattle, we had chickens, we had hog killing time at hog day, and we had, my grandfather had turkey, and we had a couple of horses.
Did you ever ride the horse back then?
We did. It's not like we didn't have a whole gather of horses. I don't know how many we had, maybe 3 or 4. No, I didn't ride the horse, but my mother, she was just like adventurous. She would ride the horse. My mother rode the horse.
You got any pictures of it?
We didn't have any pictures, I guess. And my grandfather had, I guess, a couple of mules, because he used to plow with the mules on the farm. We lived on a farm.
And how much land did you have on the farm?
I really can't describe how much land. Well, we had acres and acres of land, which we had to leave because there was nobody to take care of it. When we had to leave, when I was 15 and my sister Mary was about 13, my brother George about 11, is when the last one of us to leave Texarkana, Arkansas. So we had to leave the land, and I don't know who have the land today, but as far as I'm concerned, it still belonged to the Davis family. I asked a cousin that I met after I got to Santa Monica, California. She's my grandfather's first cousin, so they had moved here years ago, so I got to know her. I met her. I said, well, where did we get the land from? She said the Indians gave it to us.
And was there any family relation from our family and the Indian family?
I'm told, I didn't know her, but I'm told by my first cousin who has died. He was an only child, but my Aunt Essie, which was my father's sister, that my grandfather, Henry Davis' mother, was Indian. And my sister Maybelle, the oldest one, she also knew. She told me that our grandfather's mother was the Indian woman.
The Indians gave the family the land in Texarkana, Arkansas, and the last time that you went out to Texarkana, Arkansas, is there a way to go back and see that land, or is it so deep in the backwoods that you can't access it anymore?
Well, I think it's mostly just grown up. I don't know, but you remember I took you and your brothers on the family reunion 2007, and I tried to point out where our land was way back in the woods. So I don't know if anyone's living there, because the last cousin we had left was an old lady. Her son and daughter had to go and bring her out, but my grandfather died back there in that house in Texarkana, and Daddy always said, ain't no white man getting this land as long as I'm living. His brother, Jesse Davis, owned the store, what we call Uptown. He had his own store. He wanted to sell the land, and they were in conflict like a lot of people are probably today. But I remember my great-uncle Jesse and my grandfather, which I called Daddy. Daddy said, ain't no white man getting this land as long as I'm living. My brother just want to sell this land. So that's me mimicking my grandfather, because he and we used to always talk, and we were very close, and we lived close to him. And Daddy had it down, he was just right down the street. It was like, only took, and I don't know, it probably didn't even take a good 15 minutes to get from where we lived to where Daddy lived. Daddy had a fireplace, but we just had I don't know who built it, a 3-room shack, but Daddy had a better built house.
And so back where you lived in Arkansas, was there not a street that you lived on, because you said you lived in the backwoods? There was no street?
Uptown is the only street you get to.
So how did you get mail? Anybody receive mail back then?
Out there on the rock road where you walk that mile, and sometimes people would be coming from work, my mother or my first cousin, there's a mailbox, Route 4 Box 604. Some people still have them now out in places. They're sitting out there a mile or so, and you just go there, look in the mailbox, see if you have any mail. And they leave it there, out there at the good road.
Okay. So
the mailbox.
The good road is the same place you catch the bus to go to the school.
The same place, and the same place that we went all the way down to the river when we went, if you still remember, to that church. And that was the good road, because they didn't have the pavement then.
So going from that type of lifestyle in Arkansas to the city lifestyle, do you feel like you preferred the convenientness of being in the city, where you didn't have to walk that far or go that far to get places?
Well, as I look back over it, the only thing about, my feet getting real cold, or a lot of times me and my brother, we would go to school, rain or shine, get there, your feet are wet. I'm glad I was raised there. I moved to Venice Beach at 16, and I graduated from Venice High. I have a 52-year-old son. I will say he's been attacked by police after church one Sunday when he was 28. It's written in the Los Angeles Times, but he graduated college at 24 years old with 2 degrees, and he was a teacher at the time. And all these things people want to see, they can see them.
Before you ever had kids, what made you want to move to Venice and leave Arkansas?
We had my sister, who was about 5 years older than I, and then I had a second brother who was maybe 2.5 years older than me, and the other sisters and brothers were younger. So we had nobody there, no men there to help support us. I had one uncle that lived to be 95, but he had moved to Houston, Texas long ago, which he would come to visit us as often as he could. But it was no men left. Some of them died very young that I didn't know. When
you moved to Venice, how would you say Venice was different from Arkansas?
Venice was different because you could get up and get on the bus, and it didn't take long to get to school, or you could walk to a market, which you couldn't do in Arkansas because you had to make sure you get up to the city to get some of your food, even though we raised a lot of our foods. Like, we did need to kill the chickens and the hogs and the chicken eggs in the country, but everything was in close proximity like it is today. We moved about 2 blocks from Venice Beach.
Okay. So do you have a favorite place or location in the city of Venice?
Well, of course, I like the Venice Beach because you can sit as long as you want, and I don't know about these days, but you could people watch and get to know the people.
Because you've been in the Los Angeles area, far west side, Venice and Santa Monica for many years now, close to 60, maybe a little more than 60. Do you have a favorite place in Santa Monica? Because you said the beach was your favorite place in Venice. What's your favorite place in Santa Monica?
Well, usually now, since they have people, I like to go and get a cup of coffee or crescent roll and just sit out on the promenade and people watch, because you see all kinds of people, all kinds of whatever, until I get tired. And also the library on 6th Street. I left the library today. I go to the library almost every week. I buy books, I look at books. The library is a favorite place for me to go. If you like this, subscribe to GV Local.